Thank you so much for joining us for the Autism Parenting Summit. My name is Sharon Longo, and I'll be your host for this session titled Dr. TempleGradin Answers Your Questions on Behavior, Communication, Learning, and More. We're thrilled to have Dr. Grandin with us today. Dr. Grandin is a distinguished professor of animal science at Colorado State University. She's also been instrumental in implementing animal welfare auditing programs used by corporations. She has appeared on numerous TV shows and is in the new documentary An Open Door. She has written numerous books, some of which have been on the New York Times bestseller list. Temple was also inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame and the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame. Please join me in welcoming Dr. TempleGradin. Well, I just want to welcome you today, Temple. So let's get right into our questions.
All right.
So for behavior, Charmaine of Grover Beach in the U.S. asks, please discuss how self-regulation in a parent, caregiver, or teacher can support an ASD child regulate their emotions and behaviors.
Well, what was done with me, I was given some places to exercise when we went to visit relatives. I had a hallway I could run in. I had another bedroom I had play with some toys in if I had to, but I wasn't allowed to just stay there all day. But I had some places where I could take some breaks. I was expected to sit at the dining room table for 20 minutes with all the family members. And then if I wanted to be excused, I could be excused. But if dessert wasn't served, I didn't get any. If I wanted dessert, then I was going to have to wait until dessert was served. A lot of these kids don't get enough exercise. That's going to help regulate them. But they also sometimes just need to take a little break.
Right. You mentioned waiting. A lot of times parents they instantly respond rather than making their child wait a little bit. So that's
well, this is why in my treatment when I was a little kid, so much emphasis on turn-taking games. Because that taught me how to wait and take turns. Right. And stop a lot of really impulsive behavior.
Okay, so we have Puzzle from the United States. The Palm Coast has a 5-year-old child who doesn't have a formal diagnosis. They ask, how would you handle behavior in a child who's limited verbal and will consistently run away, throw objects at the communication partner, bite, kick, hit when tasked with a non-preferred task? They use visuals. They have a timer. They've tried first, then, and they're trying to work on joint attention and task completion using preferred and non-preferred tasks. The speech language pathologist models use a static communication book and fringe vocabulary, as well as single message VODs, switches, and
you got a lot of stuff here, and a lot of these kids need some control, like on sensory stuff. If the kid's afraid of the vacuum cleaner, let the child turn it on and off. Give them some control. So maybe we can have some choices. We're going to have preferred activities, non-preferred, but we could give some choices of maybe the non-preferred. So there's some choices. And we got to make sure we don't accidentally reward bad behavior. I heard a really stupid thing a school did. When the kid acted out in class, they sent him down to the principal's office to play with the iPad. Well, that's rewarding bad behavior. And they didn't even realize it.
Right.
And the other thing is have some rewards for not pitching a fit. You might get some extra rewards because people reward animals all the time. When horses are pushing and shoving when you go to feed them, and they put the feed down when they're pushing and shoving, you've rewarded pushing and shoving. Right. And they don't even realize that. And people do that with cattle too, and that can get really dangerous. I don't want these big animals pushing and shoving, but they don't even realize they are rewarding pushing and shoving. No, you wait until they stand a few seconds of plight, then you put the feed down. Right. You're not going to get the feed down if you push it. You could get the feed if you're pushing and shoving.
That makes sense.
And I think some of this, happens with these kids, but some choice, so they have some control. We are going to have to do non-preferred activities, but you can maybe give them some choice.
Right. So Samantha from Sudbury, Canada, has a 16-year-old with mild autism. She asks, as a person on the spectrum, have you struggled with aggressive behaviors? She says her son will try to bug people on purpose to get a rise out of them, and he's now been labeled as the bad kid in school, and no one will play with him. So have you struggled with telling the whole truth as well?
Well, I had problems with aggression, but it was only when I got bullied
Mhm.
that I was aggressive. I was not aggressive at other times.
Mhm.
One of the things that can help an awful lot of these kids is friends who shared interests. I was
Mhm.
bullied horribly in school, but then when I had friends when we went riding horses, well, the bullies weren't there. That was a
Right.
shared interest. I just got off a call with autism advocates, and a very successful a few autistic people got together with some other people. They were in a writing club,
Mhm.
and it actually lasted for quite a few years. That'd be another example of friends who shared interests. We got to look at why is he doing some of this behavior.
Right.
The
Right.
tendency to really overgeneralize.
Mhm.
Like someone will say, I got to have accommodations. All right, let's get really specific on what accommodations actually were required.
Mhm.
Some of the common ones at a university might be extra time on tests, quiet place to study, would be
Right.
some common ones.
Right. Yeah. So Nicole of New York has a 6-year-old with mild moderate autism. She asks, what's the best way to deal with a sudden outburst of rage, particularly if the child resorts to violent behavior with trusted adults, never with other children? And she says her son knows it's wrong to hit, kick, bite, etc., and regrets his behavior every time after the fact, but it doesn't help him regulate in the moment. And instead, she says it continues to bring down his self-esteem, which makes the cycle even worse.
Well, we have to look at what brings it on. Is there a sensory component to bringing this on? Then he might need to take a break.
Right.
Well, with me, when I was 6 and I was in a small, regular first grade, if I pitched a fit, did anything like that, either at home or at school, there was no television for one night.
Right.
And they waited until I got all nice and calm 20 minutes later. And when I got nice and calm, they said, you know the rule, there'll be no TV tonight. They didn't scream, don't take the TV away when they're throwing it. But let's look at what's bringing that on. But there were consequences. And for a 6-year-old, I would take it away for just one night. Because
Mhm.
2 weeks is like all eternity to little
Oh,
kids.
right. So Ryan of Sacramento in the US has a 13-year-old high functioning child. He asks, for the last 5 years, my son has gotten into a consistent habit of screaming in the house, dropping to the floor, crying for multiple hours, many days a week. He screams and cries so loudly, I don't think I could live in a townhome or a small home with neighbors nearby. He says this has negatively affected our family. None of the doctors or therapists have been able to help. His son hasn't responded to ABA therapy or CBT therapy. He doesn't scream at school, but he's done it in public with the family.
So he does it just in public.
And with
Uh,
the, so
because
is it,
sometimes you can get a outburst of behavior that's actually kind of an epilepsy thing. I talked to a parent where every morning when her kid woke up, he was in a rage. And I would suspect an epilepsy kind of thing. But when it's like not doesn't do it at school,
Mhm.
does it at home, I want to rule out. Now, this is a fully verbal kid.
what, high functioning, so I would assume
I'm
so.
assuming he's fully verbal.
Mhm.
Now let's make sure that the lights in the house don't flicker.
Mhm.
That's one environmental thing. And you just take pictures of the room in slow motion video with your phone. You'll find the lights that flicker. And he just does this at home. Does he get any rewards for not doing it?
Mhm. Right, right. Yeah, no, that would probably help.
Yeah, like you're going to get a reward if you don't do this.
Now he did ask, should we look into neurological testing?
Well, usually when it's an epileptic thing, you'll get the outbursts and they're real random.
Mhm.
Now, the fact that this one boy got it when he woke up, but it was only when he woke up.
Mhm.
That might be some weird epilepsy thing. But the fact that it happens at home and not at school,
Right.
that's less likely to be neurological. Like he has some control over it. I'd want to talk about what are consequences for doing this.
Right.
And then, if he goes a certain length of time, doesn't throw a fit, get some kind of reward for not throwing a fit.
Right.
Now, in nonverbal, I always want to ask about hidden painful medical. Let's say in non-speaking, you all of a sudden have a deterioration in behavior. You've got to look for hidden painful medical that they can't tell you about. Constipation, urinary tract infections, ear infections, stomach pain. These are the kinds of things that they cannot tell you about. The other thing I'm very concerned about, the picky eaters, is old-fashioned vitamin deficiency diseases. I've talked to 3 cases of scurvy. That's vitamin C deficiency. Iron anemia is another one. If you were deficient in iron, a kid that's got a very limited diet, let's just take a multiple vitamin. I'd like to not have the old-fashioned vitamin deficiency diseases. A deficiency, you can go blind. The B vitamin deficiencies are very nasty. We used to study those at home ec. I studied them at home ec, but people today are not studying them, and they're coming back, and doctors don't know how to diagnose them. And they tend to be in the kids that are super picky eaters.
Right. Yeah. So there's a few things they can do to figure out why that's happening at home.
Well, you have to figure out, is it physical or is it behavioral? Okay, let's say the meltdowns just happen in a super busy, noisy Walmart.
Right.
That's sensory overload.
And you mentioned the lights flickering at home, that could be.
Well, that's the fact, it's at home and it's not at school. Then I'm going to look at what are we doing different at home than at school. I might want to go over to school and observe what's going on. This is where teachers and parents need to get on the same wavelength.
Right.
And find out what the school's doing, why they are successful. He doesn't do it at school. See, then it's more likely to be behavioral. But I do want to rule out lights flickering.
Right.
And now we got LEDs and they just do all kinds of, some flicker, some don't.
Delia of Farnworth Bolton in Greater Manchester in the UK has a 7-year-old nonverbal grandchild and asks, we're trying to teach my granddaughter right from wrong, but this is very hard as we can't tell if she's being naughty or if it's part of her being autistic. Should you tell off an autistic child? I guess she means, discipline them or, tell them.
Well, all right, let's start off with breaking things is wrong. Okay, if she's throwing stuff and breaking it, that's wrong. Let's start with things that she might understand. And your good behavior is not breaking stuff.
Yeah, because she's saying, does she not need to learn right from wrong? Obviously, she needs to know right from wrong.
Well, you see, then you have more abstract kinds of wrong. You took an apple from the store and didn't pay for it. That's not robbing a bank, but it's definitely wrong.
Right.
She'd have to understand the concept of money to understand that stealing something from the store is wrong. So maybe just start more basic things. Breaking stuff is wrong. Biting, kicking, and hitting is wrong.
Right.
Those are things you don't do. Let's start with that kind of stuff.
And just explain it very clearly. She does also mention, for example, that sometimes she eats flowers.
She sometimes what?
Sometimes eats flowers.
Oh, a lot of kids put a lot of stuff in their mouth. There are some plants outside that are poisonous that you probably wouldn't want to be eating. The other thing I always ask, in whatever therapy you're in, is the kid improving? There's all the controversy about ABA and this and that, and all these different therapies. And if you're working with very young children, you need at least 10 hours a week of one-to-one teaching with an effective teacher. And in a 3-year-old, I want speech, turn taking, and skills. And the child should like going to therapy and get progress. So whatever they're doing, is the kid's behavior getting better? Is he on an improvement trend? Because what I found about effective teachers, I find they tend to do the same thing regardless of the name of the therapy. There's just really good effective teachers, and they know how to engage these kids.
Right. Yeah, and that's what's important. The child has to be engaged and enjoy what they're doing. So we've got Wesley of Columbus in the US, has a 13-year-old with level 2 autism. He asks, how do you discipline your child with autism and ADHD?
First of all, I want to know, how verbal is he? I've got to figure out what he's capable of understanding.
Just says level 2 autism.
Well, you see, this is the thing, it's too vague. And she did give me the age, which is good, because that's one of the first questions. But I want to get some idea if a kid is 12 or 13, what's his level of, can he read at the 6th grade level? I'm trying to get some idea of what he's capable of understanding. And what was he doing again?
The dad is just asking, how do you discipline your child? The child has autism and ADHD.
Well, penalties for doing stuff that's wrong, rewards for doing stuff that's right.
Right.
Basically, same way you would a regular child.
Right. Anything different they should do if the child also has ADHD? Is there,
Not really. But a lot of these kids with ADHD they got to go out and run the energy out of them. A lot of these kids are not getting enough exercise.
Yeah, they have too much pent up energy inside.
And then when it comes to stimulants, there's some kids where they work like magic, and there's others where it doesn't work. But when they do work, instantly.
So we've got Lola of Salem, Oregon, is working with an 11-year-old who has level 1 autism. And she states, I'm the clinician. I want to help this young child who frequently has fits. And she knows that the child is overwhelmed, but then says she could be the sweetest, most intelligent child she knows. She says the meltdowns are affecting her sister, her mom, the students in her class, and the staff. So they've tried a lot of different things. She also says she just started her period and says it must.
All right, that's puberty. That's when things took a bad turn with me. Things got a whole lot worse with me when I went into puberty.
So
well, need some detail as what exactly is going on here. See, this is the problem, is overgeneralization. You see, when I talked to the other group about friends who shared interests, I gave examples. Horses, playing in a band, being in a play. These are specific examples.
Yeah, no, I mean,
what is the now I had, when I went, at this point in 9th grade, I got sent away to a special school, and the headmaster put me to work running the horse barn and cleaning horse stalls. And although I was concerned about the lack of academics, and Mr. Patey, the headmaster, said, let her get through her adolescence. And that probably was a good idea. I made up a lot of the academics later.
Right. And then we've got Shelley of Las Vegas, in the US, has a 4-year-old child. She actually doesn't say what the child's level is, but she asks, how do you handle an intelligent child with ASD that is becoming increasingly oppositional and is now eloping from class?
Okay, that gets bad. There's eloping. Again, rewarding them for not doing it. Running off, is there a penalty for running off? You see, the rule I had about no TV for one night very uniformly applied, whether it was at home or at school. TV was taken away for one night, not 2 weeks, because to a 4-year-old, that's forever, just for one night. The other thing is with opposition stuff, We're having more problems with that, I think, now than we were in my generation.
Mhm.
There was sort of more expectations that, yeah, you just had to do some stuff.
Mhm.
And I got bored in church. I didn't like church, but it was an activity that the rest of the family's going to do, and then I was not allowed to disrupt it.
Mhm. Right.
Sometimes you got to, it's like taking turns in games.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to do some stuff you don't really want to do.
Right.
It's not always preferred activities.
Mhm. Yeah. Is there like a way to explain eloping, to explain
Well,
to
it depends what's bringing it on.
Mhm.
I I can remember when I was like 10 years old, running out of the house, running across the field and saying I'm going to run away, but then I came back. But
Right, right. I mean, she is 4, she's young, so. But we also have Chris from Philadelphia in the US. This is talking about PDA. Has a 3-year-old with moderate to severe autism, and they ask, what's the best advice to help a child with a strong pathological demand avoidance disorder?
just can't believe that 3-year-olds are getting that now. Okay, the first thing I'm going to ask, what do we do? What are we doing for therapy?
Mhm. Right.
I'm sitting and playing with the phone all day? No.
Mhm.
I'm hearing too much on to your wait list for 3-year-olds. We better get some retired teachers out there to work with them. First thing I want to ask is what exactly are they doing for therapy?
Yeah,
And are they getting any improvement?
mhm.
You
She
see, in
says,
this term, pathological demand, opposite of defiant, that's getting thrown around way too much. I don't know. When
yeah,
kids two,
tell
maybe
you.
they're all oppositional defiant. It's the reason why it's called the terrible twos.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, no,
But the problem is, there has to be some expectations. My mother had high expectations with accommodations. When I
mhm.
was 5, or maybe I was 4, and we went on this ferry and the horn blew and I threw myself on the deck screaming. They didn't make me ride under the horn. I
Right.
rode the deck underneath. Noise canceling headsets that didn't exist in the 50s. Uh,
Mhm.
but we're going to go on the ferry. You see, now I'd be hearing, well, the kid opened the car door and ran off when we were trying to drive the car onto the ferry. I can assure you that would not have happened with me. But they did not make me sit under the horn. We're going to
Mhm.
go on that ferry, but we'll make an accommodation.
Mhm. Right. Right.
And that's what we did. I hated that ferry, but I still went on it
Right.
because we couldn't go to our vacation unless we went on the ferry.
Mhm. She mentions that he only wants to do things when he's in control, and says, I've had times when we'll play together, making drum noises or playing with a toy, but when I ask him to tell me my turn, he'll stop playing with the toys right away because she's made a demand.
Well, you see, this is the problem. I don't think enough was taught on turn taking.
Mhm.
See, this was a very big part of my therapy when I was 3,
Mhm.
and all kinds of games, relay races, later on board games, uh, simple board games. They didn't have the children's games in the 50s, but we had Parcheesi set and Chinese checkers.
Mhm.
And you have to wait and take your turn. And slamming down the board, that's not okay.
Right. Right.
But learning how to wait and take turns, all these kids are like this, especially a little kid. Let's just play a lot of games where we have to wait and take turns. They've got to learn how to wait, and you can't always do everything that the kid wants. I
Right.
remember a family where every Saturday, the kid was a little older, maybe the kids were like 10, 8, and 7 or something like that. And every Saturday they do a fun thing: roller
Mhm.
skating, skateboarding, miniature golf. And the autistic kid liked the miniature golf and he hated skateboarding. But the other boy wanted to skateboard. Only probably afraid of skateboarding, but you have to, but that's what the other boy wants to do, and then you have to sit and watch that.
Right.
Um, but we're going to, with the other, that's taking turns. We can
Mhm.
go to just one place each Saturday, and we have 3 kids, and they've got to take turns picking the place to go.
Right, right. Oh, that's a smart idea. Yeah.
You have to sometimes do stuff that other people want to do.
Hmm.
And I was expected not to disrupt it.
Right. Now she does.
Usually I didn't.
Hmm. Yeah. Now she does
My
mention.
expectations was some accommodations, like having a place to exercise when we went to my aunt's house
Hmm.
for fancy meals. There was a hallway with a mirror at the end of the hall, and I'd run down the hall and see myself get big in the mirror, and I was allowed to run in that hall.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And when we went to Granny's, she lived on the in a fifth floor apartment. I'd run up the stairs and beat the elevator.
Yeah.
And that burst of hard exercise was very helpful. See, those
Right.
are kind of things you can just, do it in the place.
Hmm.
But there has to be some expectations that you have to take turns and sometimes do stuff that other people want to do.
Right. Right. Now she does mention, like if she tries to show him where to put a puzzle piece, he'll put the piece in a different spot. Um, so I don't know if that's just being three.
Sometimes you've got to see a 3-year-old's kind of hard to reason with.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea of treating other people nicely, that was kind of pounded into me.
Hmm. Right.
Will you share your toys with other kids? Because then they'll share their toys with you. And I remember when I don't know, we were like 6 and 7 years old when we were over at the neighbor's house and we had a limited amount of orange juice. And I remember very carefully taking 3 glasses and very carefully dividing it 3 ways perfectly.
Yeah.
But you see, those are important things to learn. You see, and you could do that. You say, okay, we've got only a half a thing of orange juice. Um, we'll just, we're going to use up what's left and we're going to put equal amounts for everybody because sharing's the right thing to do.
Right.
And when I was 7 or 8 years old, I stole a toy fire engine from a kid's birthday party.
Oh,
And then I lied to my mother and said it was a party favor. And
oh,
mother says, you're going to have to go back over to school with that and give that back to Billy. She made me take it to school and give it back to the child who had the birthday party.
hmm. And you probably remember that
I
lesson.
remember it very well.
Yeah.
I remember it very, very well.
Right. Right. So, for communication and children who are nonverbal or limited
Well, you
verbal.
got to have ways to communicate. The kids have got to have ways to communicate. The nonverbal got to have some way to communicate. It'd be sign language. It could be some fancy communication device. It could be a picture board, picture exchange. There's got to be something to communicate with.
Right.
Got to
Right.
have that.
Yeah. I mean, we
Now,
have.
some of the communication devices are expensive, so if you can't get that, even if it's just a picture board,
Hmm.
but
Right.
some way to say he's hungry, he's thirsty, he needs the toilet, he's cold, he's hot,
Yeah.
to communicate some needs,
Hmm.
like to play music.
Yeah. So Lauren from Rockville, Maryland, has a 3-year-old. Doesn't say what the level is, but she asks, how can you support a child's language to shift from primarily scripting to more functional communication and back and forth conversation?
You just keep working on it, and if it's gradually improving, then you're doing the right thing. It's that simple. Now, some of these kids will yak out a whole movie script,
Hmm.
and they have absolutely no idea what it means.
Right.
So you might try what Life Animated tried. They took a Disney script and they picked out script phrases you actually could work into real conversation. And then they understood what those were for. There's kind of 3 ways that language is messed up in the brain. When teachers talked fast, it went to gibberish. That's auditory processing. And I think to some individuals, the auditory processing so terrible, they just aren't hearing the words.
Hmm.
And then you have expressive issues, can't get it out. And then you have the echolalic kid that nice language comes out, but they're just scripting movie scripts.
Right.
In that situation, they don't know what the language means.
Mhm.
We got to help them learn what it means. Maybe learning nouns first, names of things, might learn those things first.
Right.
But what they did in the book Life Animated is they took lines out of a Disney movie that you could actually work into real situations.
Mhm. Oh, no, that's a great idea. Kids love movies. So we have Debbie from the US who asks, how has your work in animal behavior influenced your understanding of human behavior and communication?
Well, people can get scared, animals can get scared.
Mhm.
Some of the first work I did was to get in a chute and see what cattle were seeing.
Right.
And that wasn't so obvious to the verbal thinkers.
Mhm.
Looking at some of these problems that people are asking about, there's a tendency for the verbal thinkers to overgeneralize. It's opposite of defiant or demand avoidance. Okay, I want to get more specific as to what's going on here.
Right.
What's bringing it on? Because this child that was angry when he woke up, that's real weird. And it may be some kind of epileptic thing. Never got angry any other time. That's kind of real. Or if you have a meltdown out of the blue, just real random, and you keep a log, and it doesn't seem to be associated with the place or associated with noise or associated with uh, anything that
Right.
might be epileptic.
I guess it depends on the situation.
Well, the other problem with the epilepsy stuff is in order to detect the weird little epilepsies, you have to do an EEG while you're asleep with no sedatives.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be difficult with an autistic kid to get them to do that.
Right. Right. And they usually have trouble with sleeping anyway. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so we have Michelle from Victorville, California, who has a 7-year-old with moderate autism. She asks, she says, you mentioned during a presentation that she attended that you didn't start talking until you were like 5 or 6. Her son is
Yeah,
almost,
I started talking at 4.
oh, okay, okay. Now her son is almost 7 and has limited verbal language. She wants to know what made the biggest difference in your verbal language growth, and do you have suggestions for encouraging verbal language?
Well, my verbal language was slowly coming in, starting out with single words.
Right. Mhm. Do you know about when you started to put
Oh,
sentences?
when I was 3, I might have a few single, like bro for broken. Then I'd go, Dad, Dad, like to point at something over
Mhm.
there, there. I used to call it bro for broken.
Mhm. And was there a certain
The other
age?
thing I also want to ask is the child improving?
Mhm.
Because if they're improving, they're doing something right. And I want to see these kids having a lot of time interacting with people.
Mhm.
1 hour of therapy a week is not sufficient.
Right. Right.
Absolutely not. 40 hours is ridiculous. I heard about a private equity company that was owned ABA clinic, and they were doing 40 hours a week. That's ridiculous.
No, no, that's way too much.
10 is the minimum. That'd be 2 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Right. Right.
1 hour of therapy a day. That's not 1 hour of therapy a week. Is definitely not sufficient.
Right.
These kids need a lot of one-on-one teaching. But I want to say, how much therapy is he getting? And then, is the child improving?
Right.
If the child's improving, then you're doing something right,
Mhm.
even if it's slow. But if
Is
they're
there
improving,
is there something the parent could do to encourage the verbal language, or have the
I'll
child?
ask him to use his words.
Mhm.
When let's say he wants the milk,
Mhm.
well then get him to say the word milk. But
Mhm.
give them time to respond. These kids are like slow computers. It takes time for them to respond. Give them time to respond. That is really important.
Right. So we have Linda of North Branch, Minnesota, who has a grandchild who's 6 years old, nonverbal. And she says, My grandson has a voice and does speak, but not coherently or in sentences, and he babbles and repeats. So she wants to know, how can we help him with language to speak coherently?
So he babbles when he speaks. And he's how old?
6 years old.
6 years old. Well, if the speech is gradually coming in, then you're doing the right thing. And then there's some individuals that remain non-speaking, they can learn to type independently.
Right.
And that I would really encourage doing that. But you need, the best thing to use is a tablet, because the print appears right next to the virtual keyboard.
Right.
You see, if I use this desktop I'm on now, the keyboard's way down here and the print appears way up here on the top of the monitor. And they have a very difficult time doing an attention shift.
Right.
That is difficult.
Yeah, yeah. And we've got Dina, who has a 13-year-old simple verbal child, who asks, how can we raise the voice of an autistic child because she's always whispering?
And the kid is whispering.
Yes, yes.
Does she have sound sensitivity?
They don't say. She just says, she wants to be able to help her child raise her voice and speak louder.
Yeah. Well, you can get a sound meter that you can actually get an app on a phone that measures the sound level, the volume.
That's a cool
Maybe
idea.
that might help her.
Right, right. See how much they could make it go up.
Yeah, that's right.
And Veronica from Dallas, Texas, has a 5-year-old with level 2 autism and a speech delay. And she asks, she says, you talk about how some kids are obsessed with words. How can we help these kids build on this strength while they're young?
Well, things like my ability in art, that didn't really show up at age 5. It showed up a little bit later, more like 6 or 7. And then some kids have preferred things. With 5-year-olds, let's start teaching some table manners, learn how to use utensils, learn words like please and thank you. That was something, there was a lot of emphasis on that in the 50s. Mother would go, you forgot to say please, or you forgot to say thank you.
Right, right. Yeah. No, that's important. So we have a teacher from Salem in the US who teaches a high school self-contained class with levels 1, 2, and 3 students.
She's got all the levels together.
All the levels together. And she wants to know, how do you get responses to questions when teaching a student with level 2 autism who has limited speech and echolalia? The student repeats the last word of everything that you say, and they use a touch chat on a device to model the answer, and a field with 2 images, but they feel they can't tap into what the child is actually thinking, rather than the last thing that they say.
Well, is he getting better?
Yeah, no, it doesn't say. They just, they're trying to get responses from the student to respond to questions.
Well, you get quite a lot of echolalia. I wonder if he's one of the movie script memorizers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and they tend to memorize things they've played over and over again. Back in the 50s, when you had TV that you just had, it came on when it came on, it was advertisements they used to learn because they were played over and over again. They'd learn those before they'd learn a movie.
Okay, so talking about education, Andy from Bentonville in the US has a 6-year-old. The level is presently unknown, but they ask, what curriculum and educational options, schooling, etc., do you recommend based on your experience for autistic children who are brilliant educationally?
Well, some of them need to be in a normal school. I was in a small regular school when I was 6. And I was able to go to school with all the friends in the neighborhood. That was a good thing. That was a real good thing. See, I like to go into normal school as much as you can.
Right, right. Now, this child has skipped a grade already, and they're saying they probably will skip another in the future, but socially they're not as advanced. So is there any recommendation?
Well, you have to just teach them. I had to learn not to talk on and on and on over and over again about my favorite thing, to the point where it just completely bored everybody else. And other people got bored about hearing about my favorite thing. When I was in high school, it was a carnival ride. And I
Oh,
would talk about it over and over and over again, to the point where everybody got totally bored with it. And I had to learn not to do that.
right, right. And anything else they could do as far as, making friends or just advancing a little bit more socially.
Well, friends who shared interests.
Mm-hmm. Right.
One of my favorite things when I was a child was a hockey set that you have to play with another person.
Right.
For this
Right.
game to be fun, you have to do it with somebody else. So the kids would come over and we'd play the hockey table. And that
Right.
may be one of the reasons why mother got the hockey table for me, because it's a game you have to do with other people. And it was one of my favorite things. And it had players on rods that you moved in and out like this and
Yeah.
twist them and spin them. But it's something you have to do with somebody else.
Right. Right.
And you don't have to do that much socializing. You
Mhm.
can just play it.
Right. And just enjoy each other's company.
That's right.
Right. Miriam of Dublin, Ireland, has a 14-year-old. The level is unknown, but she says, I'm unsure how far to push academically when the child does not really want to learn, but instead play. Can you recommend ways that might encourage the child to learn more?
Well, maybe what you can do is take something that interests him.
Mhm.
Let's say it's cars. Let's say it's race cars. I'm just making something up. Well, then we can do math with race cars.
Right,
How long does it take for the race car to go around the track at this speed?
right.
Okay, that's math with race cars. We could read about famous race car drivers.
Mhm.
Okay, see, I'm just figuring out how to work school into what the kid's interested in. And that
Right.
can help motivate it.
Mhm. Yeah, they could write about it, read about it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
and they're interested. Um, so Luke from Rome, Italy, has a 9-year-old, level 3, and asks, how can we help our nonverbal child improve his social skills?
Well, let's find activities where they can be social, like taking turns at a game,
Right.
playing games together.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, anything with playing games, taking
Yeah.
turns, like you said, yeah, will be helpful. And then we've got Mindy from Riverton in the US, has a 15-year-old, isn't sure of their level of autism, but she asks, how do I help my teenager with relationships and rejection?
Well, the rejection can be really hard. The bullying, teen years, and the rejection was horrible. It was just horrible. And the only places I was not rejected was where I had friends who shared interest in the Model Rocket Club and horseback riding.
Right.
And the bullies did not do those activities. Now, for other kids, marching band can be really good, but for one kid, it was a failure because the bullies were in the band.
Mhm.
But finding activities they can do with other people, and you have to follow the rules.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. So Rainbow of Johor Bahru, Malaysia, has a 17-year-old level 3 child, asks how to motivate their child to learn things. She's gifted in music, but refused to learn the piano properly. And they've tried to getting her to play her favorite songs and using her favorite food as a reinforcer, but that didn't help much.
Okay, so they want to get her to so she won't play the piano correctly. There might be a coordination issue. Maybe there'd be other instruments she could do better at.
Mm-hmm.
Try different instruments, guitars,
Mm-hmm.
horns, different instruments.
Right, right.
So it takes a lot of coordination to play the piano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That might be part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe something a little bit.
Yeah, I had piano lessons. I got a little bit past chopsticks, and that was about it.
Right. So then going into adulthood, transitioning to adulthood, Kayla from Parker Heights, Texas, has an 18-year-old level 1 child. And she asks, how can parents and educators best help autistic teens find mentors who can help them turn their skills into a career?
Well, they got to get exposed to stuff. I got exposed to cattle when I was 15, and I found out I liked them. But if I hadn't been exposed to them, I wouldn't know. I was exposed to musical instruments. I was terrible at them. I had a little flute. I can never figure out how to play it. You got to expose them to a lot of different things. 18 years old, this kid needs to get a job. This is where we got a real problem with not making the transition. And I have a book called The Loving Push, and it's aimed at the parents that maybe protect their kid too much. And what was done with me was some choices. When I was 15, the opportunity came up to go to my aunt's ranch. I was scared to go. Some mother said, you can go for a week or you can go all summer. Not going wasn't one of the options.
Right. Yeah.
I got out there and I loved it.
Yeah. You have to try things to know whether or not you're going to like them. So now we have Barbara from Charlotte, North Carolina. She has a 38-year-old daughter under the umbrella spectrum, intellectually, developmentally delayed. And she asks,
I'm 13 years old.
No, 38 years old.
Oh, 38 years old. Okay.
She's intellectually, developmentally delayed. She says it's very sad when our autistic children become adults and the parents are too old. And she's saying, where do they go if there's no relatives to take them? And she's asking, what do you think of alternative family living, which is like a foster home for special needs young adults?
Because the family they're in can't take care of her.
She says there's no relatives to take her.
Well, then she needs to be someplace where people can take care of her. Yeah, and the other thing is she's one of these individuals that's 24/7, where she's going to need somebody with her all the time.
Right. Okay, and then sensory issues seem to be, a big issue with a lot of children with autism. So we have Sabrina from Houston, Texas, has a 5-year-old with level 1 autism. And she asks, how can I help my sensory-seeking son perform better in his gen ed class? And how can I educate others about sensory seeking?
Well, we got to figure out what exactly his problems are. The things that tend to come up all the time. Some of these kids need sensory breaks. Some of them need some place to exercise.
Right.
That can be helpful. We got to make sure the lights don't flicker. That really bothers about 10% of autistic kids or kids with different labels. Lights that flicker. If you have windows in the classroom, then get the desk over by the windows so they don't see the flickering. I've had a student where flickering lights are giving her migraines. And that's really bad.
Right. So is there, she's asking, how can she educate others about sensory seeking?
Well, I tell people, just imagine if just everything was loud, like being inside the speaker at the rock concert. Right. Okay, then people might understand it. But you see, sometimes they'll say, well, the kid himself makes a lot of noise. Well, you see, that's noise he's controlling. See, when the kid controls the noise, like they turn on the vacuum cleaner or whatever the thing is, hair dryer, whatever it is, when they turn it on, it's much better tolerated. They turn the dreadful thing on. In fact, that's a good way to desensitize. Also, another method desensitizes a paper out there called Environmental Enrichments, an Effective Treatment for Autism. And you stimulate 2 senses at the same time. Like you might hold a cold water bottle and smell peppermint. And you're always stimulating across 2 different senses.
Right.
And you're always changing the pair of senses that you stimulate.
And then a lot of children with autism have sleep issues. So
they have what?
Sleep issues.
Oh, sleep issues. Oh, yeah, that's common. Yep, I would want to stay up all night. And the rule was I could have the reading light on. I had to be quiet and just stay at the bed. And I had to be up at 7 the next morning to go to school.
Right. So Manaraj of Banapa, Nepal, has a 13-year-old daughter, but doesn't say what the level is. But they ask, what are the solutions to the problem of not sleeping at night?
Well, just have some rules. You got to stay in the bedroom, cannot run around the house and bother other people that are sleeping. I
Right.
basically had to stay on the bed and I could have the reading light on.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Is there a way to get them to stay in the bed, with,
Well, the rule was I stayed on the bed and I could go to the bathroom, but I was not to run around the house.
right? So then having consequences if
Now, there would be consequences. If I ran around the house and woke everybody up, there would have been some consequences.
right, right. Now some children wet the bed. And so we've got Linny from Lismore, Australia, has an 8-year-old with level 2 autism, and she asks what can be done to help with bedwetting issues. Even in daylight hours, she needs to be reminded to go to the toilet when she's visibly needing to go.
Well, let's make sure she does not have a urinary tract infection.
Mm-hmm.
Let's rule that out. That'd be the first thing you'd want to do.
Right.
And the other thing is have regular bathroom breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like often, like every 2 hours, we go in the bathroom and use it.
Right.
That might help prevent it.
Mm-hmm. Do you recommend not having, water to drink when they go to bed, or?
Well, within reason. I don't want to get her dehydrated.
Right.
Within reason, you would recommend that, but don't guzzle down gigantic, huge glass of water and go to bed. But on the other hand, I don't want her to get dehydrated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But just sort of having regular bathroom breaks, because she's even doing it during the day.
Yes, even during the day, it needs to be reminded to go during the day.
Yeah, and then you might make it schedule for the times to go.
Right, right.
And I'm a kind of a fan of old-fashioned clocks with hands.
Mm-hmm.
I think they provide a better teaching for time,
Mm-hmm.
because I heard a consultant tell me that he was having problems with some of his autistic clients on time blindness. Now they'd be all digital clocks, but I think
Right.
a clock with hands gives a better idea of passage of time, because the second hand would go around, then the minute hand would go click, and you could actually see it move a little bit.
Yeah, you can. You can see the hands
And you
moving.
can still get those clocks.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Right.
kids having problems with time, I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not very expensive either.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. A lot of people.
Then you can look at the clock and go, at breakfast is at 7 in the morning, lunch at noon, dinner
Right,
at 6.
right. Yeah.
You see, that you can see it. You can see it in a way that you don't with digitally.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, some kids are going to be just fine with the digital clock, but if they're not fine with it, then I'd recommend the clock with hands, because that's how I learned to understand time passing.
Right, right. And you could have like a visual schedule too to show breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Well, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And then some children have issues with they remove their clothes. So we have Lakeisha, doesn't say where she's from, but has a 3-year-old level 2 child and asks, how can you help your child keep their clothes on during the day when at school?
Now let's reward them for not taking them off.
Right.
And then let's give her some choice of the things that she wears.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe shop at a thrift shop where the clothes are softer.
Right, right. That could be.
And new clothing needs to be washed. Anything that goes against the skin needs to be washed before it's worn. I do that with all my underwear.
Yeah, no, that plays into the sensory issues, and it could be.
Yeah, and it is sensory, but reward her, for not taking them off.
Right, right. Yeah. And then we have Kelly of Phoenix, Arizona, has a child with low functioning autism. She doesn't say what the child's age is, but she's asking, can levels of autism improve with speech and physical therapy?
Well, lots of times they do. With a little kid, I was very severe when I was a child, when I was 3, real severe looking. Now, the good news is I did not have epilepsy. That was the good news. But a kid can look really severe at a very young age, and they can gradually kind of get pulled out of it. You just don't know. That's why you've got to just work with them.
Yeah. Is there, any type of physical therapy that you think is better than others?
Well, there's all the controversy about different therapies.
Mhm.
I think OT type of things is definitely part of a good program and the sensory integration stuff, but there's also sometimes some discrete trial works.
Mhm.
People get too hung up. It's only this or it's only that.
Right.
Sometimes it's a combination of things.
Mhm.
The thing is, I want to see progress.
Right.
I'm a
Right.
little kid, I want to see progress. If you're
Right.
doing progress, then you're doing something right.
Right. As long as they're moving forward. Um, and then we have Nelturn of Ankara, Turkey, has a 26-year-old low-level, less verbal son, and they're
26-year-old.
26. Yes.
All right, I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah. They're asking, their son wants to buy toys, but then after time passes, he leaves them. But then again, he insists on buying similar toys. And they want to know how they can limit his eagerness to buy toys without hurting his feelings. And they tried to change this out with books, but that didn't work.
Well, if he's still, playing with like little kids' toys, he's probably at a very low level.
Mhm.
Then you have other kids that, they might like some cartoon character and want to wear it around their neck, which is kind of socially inappropriate. But you know where you can have it? You can have it on your keychain or on your backpack. I've been checking out people at the airport, the things that they have on their backpack and
Right.
their keychain, especially on their backpack.
Mhm.
Cartoon character figurine tied to the zipper on their backpack. And these are grown-up people at the airport. So that would just be a little more socially appropriate way of displaying that
Right.
figurine of Power Ranger or whatever it is that they like, Disney character.
Right. Right. And maybe they can have some books that, deal with the types of toys. If the child likes, cars, as you said before, maybe some books on cars, the child might get, more interested in that.
Well, the first thing I'm going to ask is, can he read?
Right, right.
I've got some questions I got to ask.
Hmm.
Can he read?
Hmm. Yeah, if there's a reading issue, then that won't take the place of the toys. And then we have Dina from Ontario, Canada, has a 14-year-old with moderate autism, and she's asking, in what ways, if any, do you think AI will change the future outlook for autism?
Well, I think we still need to be doing things with real people. I
Mhm.
really do. And I've read some bad things about suicides and some other very bad things with AI because the AI would agree with them too much when they were kind of delusional and ended up with really bad effect. I still think we need to be working with real people.
Mhm. Well, Temple, is there anything else you'd like to?
No, I think I might just pitch a few books. This is my Way I See It book, the most kind of basic book about autism.
Mhm.
For kids that are fully verbal, I have my visual thinking book where I
Mhm.
talk about different kinds of thinking. And there's a young reader's version, different kinds of minds.
Mhm.
I see there's a problem we got with autism is you're going from Bill Gates and Einstein to somebody with much more severe problems. And I think having the spectrum so big really is a problem.
Right. Right.
Where something like ADHD, that's much narrower.
Mhm. Right.
With a lot of these kids, I mean, the worst thing you could do with a 3-year-old is just let them zone out on phones all day. That is not the thing to do.
Yeah. No, that.
And getting them out doing things. There was a study done at CSU by Caitlin Peters, and they looked at horseback riding activities, a garden they took the kids out in, and waitlist control. And the horses were the most effective, but just taking them out in the garden did have some efficacy. That was
Mhm.
better than waitlist control. Let's
Right.
get them out doing things.
Mhm. Out in the world. Yeah.
Get them out in the world.
Right. Right. I
I
agree.
have a book called The Outdoor Scientist.
Huh.
Get out, look at stars, and you can look at satellites and look at
Right.
plants and observe animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get them out and doing things.
Yeah, that's like our outdoor playground that people
Oh, the
don't.
thing that's bad is right where I live, there's I didn't even know that little kids lived in these buildings until I saw the school bus unloading them. Nice outdoor playground with a fence. I hardly ever see a kid in there.
Wow.
Just get them off the devices. And some of these kids will go through like a day and a half of device withdrawal, and then they discover free play. But they
Mhm.
have to sort of go through device withdrawal first. The
Right.
boys are the worst.
Yeah. But once they discover the world out there, then they know that there's so much more for them.
That's right.
Well, Temple, I just want to thank you so much for this valuable session, and I want to thank our audience for joining us today. So
Okay.
please be sure to check our session schedule for the coming days. And we have many more inspiring presentations and interviews with experts and voices from across the spectrum. Thanks again. Take
All
care.
right. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.